That hit should have liquefied every organ in his body. A freight train at full speed carries enough kinetic force to vaporize human tissue on impact, not bruise it, vaporize it. And yet Omni-Man doesn't flinch. He doesn't bleed. He barely blinks. Most people watching that scene register it as, okay, he's really strong, and move on. But strong doesn't explain what just happened. Strong means you hit harder and endure more before you break. What you saw is a body that operates under entirely different failure rules, one that refuses to collapse under conditions that should make collapse physically inevitable. That's not strength, that's stability. And once you understand the difference, everything about Viltrumite biology, their power, their weakness, their near extinction, their hybrid children, and the weapon that almost deleted them from existence, stops looking like comic book fantasy and starts looking like a coherent system with very specific rules. The proof. Human bodies don't work like this. The human body runs on one core assumption, that forces acting on it stay within survivable thresholds. When those thresholds are exceeded, the system breaks, bones shatter, organ walls rupture, neural tissue tears. This isn't a flaw, it's physics. Force transfers through material, and when the material can't handle the load, it fails. Except, apparently, not for Viltrumites. They absorb collisions that would reduce a human skeleton to powder before the nervous system even registers the impact. They survive blasts that incinerate organic tissue. They get hurled through reinforced concrete at velocities that produce more deceleration trauma than any crash a human has ever survived, and then they get up. This pattern is too consistent to dismiss as they're just built tougher. Tougher materials still follow the same physical laws. They just fail at higher thresholds. What Viltrumites are doing is something categorically different, operating under an altered relationship between force and biological consequence. The rules aren't bent, they're replaced. The twist: their weakness proves it's a system. If Viltrumite power came from raw material toughness, their weaknesses would scale predictably. They'd require proportionally greater force to damage. But here is the weakness that reveals the entire architecture. A specific sound frequency targeting the inner ear drops a Viltrumite faster than almost any physical attack. Not distracts them, drops them. A being that endures nuclear detonations can be incapacitated by the right vibration pattern. That makes no sense if their power is about toughness. It makes complete sense if it's a system, specifically one that depends on a balancing mechanism in the inner ear to function. Robot figured this out. He built anti-Viltrumite drones from a titanium alloy engineered to resonate at a precise frequency on impact, not because the alloy was strong enough to withstand Viltrumite force, but because every punch Invincible threw made the resonance worse. The harder you hit, the more it hurts you. That sentence should stop you cold. The most physically dominant warriors in a galaxy full of advanced civilizations were defeated not by superior force, but by someone who understood what the power was actually built on and attacked the foundation instead of the walls. A smart atoms. The simplest explanation for everything. The official Invincible lore describes Viltrumite physiology as built on smart atoms. Atoms with variable properties that can be rearranged to produce specific physical outcomes. Plain translation: imagine matter that has a preferred state it always wants to return to. Normal matter deforms under pressure and stays deforms. Atoms sit where the force moved them, and the damage is permanent. Smart atoms resist deformation actively, and when deformation occurs anyway, they correct back to baseline. Durability isn't armor, because armor works by sacrificing itself. It dents, cracks, and absorbs force by changing permanently. Smart atoms don't sacrifice, they maintain. Your phone uses error correction to protect data. Every bit is checked against a pattern. Deviations are flagged, and the file stays intact. Viltrumite biology runs the same logic at the atomic level. Every cell continuously self-checks against a structural template, and deviation triggers correction. That's why their durability feels qualitatively different from anything you'd get by scaling up human toughness. It's not the same system at higher intensity. It's a different system entirely, and like any system, it has failure conditions and exploitable edges. Durability isn't invincibility. It has a limit. Every stability system can be overwhelmed. Overload it faster than correction can pace. It fails. Attack it from the inside where exterior hardening doesn't reach. It fails. Find the specific condition the system wasn't designed to handle, and it fails. All of this appears in the lore exactly as you'd predict. Extended stellar plasma exposure breaks atomic bonds faster than smart atoms can repair, which is why even Thrag, the most powerful Viltrumite who ever lived, died in a star. Internal detonations bypass exterior hardening entirely, which is why a bomb detonated inside an alternate Invincible killed him instantly despite his otherwise near-invulnerable body. The inner ear weakness exists because the equilibrium system is a critical dependency. Disrupt it, and the entire stability architecture degrades. These are not plot conveniences. They're the natural failure modes of system-based biology, each following logically from the same rules that produce the power. Viltrumites are extraordinarily hard to kill, not because they can't be killed, but because most attacks never reach the actual failure conditions. Healing. Why they come back from the impossible. Human healing is reconstruction. Your body builds scar tissue and works around damage because the original cellular architecture is gone, and what grows back is a substitute, not a restoration. Viltrumite healing is the error correction system applied retroactively. If the body has a default baseline encoded in its atomic structure, healing is simply the correction process, catching up to accumulated damage. The template never stopped existing. The program just needs time to execute. Scarless tissue remodeling, low-error DNA repair, rapid clotting, organ regeneration. As long as the brain and heart stay sufficiently intact, the system can restore almost any structure from baseline. Their telomerase production applies the same logic to aging. Normal human cells have a division limit, a biological clock that counts down with every replication until the cell stops dividing. Viltrumite telomerase restores the DNA segments lost during each division, resetting the clock, keeping them in physical prime for thousands of years, error correction applied to time. The ceiling still exists, though. Enough damage at a rate faster than correction can process, and the system gets overwhelmed. They are not immortal. They are functionally immortal until something finds the ceiling. WHY humans matter. Compatibility is the real superpower. Viltrumite male reproductive cells aren't standard sperm. They're pre-fertilized organisms that implant into the host and take over gestation entirely. The partner's genetic material isn't incorporated, it's scanned, used as a randomization map to introduce cosmetic variation. The resulting child is, at its genetic core, 100% Viltrumite. During adolescence, the gene modification system activates and overrides everything, bringing the child's biology into full alignment with Viltrumite physiology. This is not normal reproduction. It's a propagation mechanism built to maintain the integrity of the genetic program through any compatible host, and humans are uniquely compatible. After the Scourge Virus reduced Viltrumite population to under 50 individuals, Earth became the most strategically valuable planet in the Empire's entire conquest history. Not because humans are physically impressive, but because the program transfers cleanly through human biology. Mark Grayson is the proof, a half-human who by adolescence was running what appeared to be the full Viltrumite biological stack. The system didn't get diluted, it initialized, which raises a question worth sitting with. Is that compatibility accidental, or evidence that the original program was designed with a genetic universality that nobody has fully examined? Scourge Virus, the exploit that nearly ended them. The Coalition spent years trying to stop Viltrumite expansion through direct military force and failed every time, because you cannot win a war of attrition against a stability system using conventional attacks. So they stopped targeting the strength and looked for the foundation. A biology built on modular genetics has a genetic attack surface, and using DNA from Thetis, a Viltrumite who turned against his own empire, Coalition scientists engineered a pathogen precisely tuned to Viltrumite genetic code. It didn't overpower them physically. It bypassed their enhanced immune responses, identified the gene modification layers responsible for their powers, and switched them off, reducing the most formidable warriors in the galaxy to something functionally indistinguishable from ordinary organisms. Results: 99.9% of the Viltrumite population dead, not in battle, but from a targeted biological exploit delivered as an airborne pathogen hidden inside an asteroid. Under 50 survivors, an empire that had conquered hundreds of worlds reduced to a handful of individuals constructing an illusion of continued dominance. One message lives inside that event above all others. The same architecture that makes Viltrumites nearly indestructible in physical combat made them catastrophically vulnerable to a precisely engineered biological attack. Their power has a programming layer. That layer can be found, and once found, it can be rewritten. The I implication: if it's a system, it can be hacked. Everything converges on one conclusion. The show hasn't fully explored yet, but that the biology makes inevitable. Viltrumite power doesn't behave like evolved organic biology. Evolved biology is messy and redundant, full of vestigial structures, because evolution accumulates rather than edits. What Viltrumite biology looks like at every level examined is something designed: modular genome architecture with built-in redundancy. A nanobot utility swarm incorporating inorganic materials to reinforce physical structure. A telomerase system that disables biological aging. A reproductive mechanism that propagates the full genetic program through compatible hosts. This is a specification, not a product of random selection. And technology built to a specification has three properties that evolved biology never does. It can be upgraded, it can be copied, and it always has an exploit. All three are already visible. The exploit, the Scourge Virus, found the programming layer and attacked it directly. The copy, Mark Grayson is a half-human running Viltrumite software at full functionality. The upgrade path, Viltrumites grow stronger in ways that exceed what training alone explains. The system has dynamic optimization built in. The most dangerous thing about the Viltrum Empire was never that they were physically unstoppable. It was that their biology operates like a piece of technology that nobody, not the Coalition, not Earth scientists, not even Viltrumites themselves, fully understands. The gap between what a system can do and what its operators comprehend about it is where every empire's real vulnerability lives. Viltrumites aren't scary because they're the strongest things in the room. They're scary because their biology behaves like a program. And somewhere out there, someone hasn't finished reading the source code. So here's where we landed. Proof that Viltrumite survival violates normal physics, the inner ear weakness as evidence of a system rather than raw toughness, smart atoms as error correction at the atomic level, the natural failure conditions of that system, healing as template restoration, human compatibility as a feature of the propagation mechanism, the Scourge Virus as a precision exploit against the genetic programming layer, and the implication that a system this coherent can be upgraded, copied, and hacked. One question, one word in the comments. Smart atoms, biology, or program? Defend your answer, because if it's a program, the next question is, who has access to the update?